Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reasonably Effective Podcast. I am Uncommon Fossils and joined by 10 types as always.
Yep. Hello, everyone.
So I know you're a little tired today, so we'll try to bring the energy as best we can. But looking forward to some good, I think, a good discussion of banned cards. And it's a bit timely now. Why are we doing it now? The reason is a couple days ago on August 15th, there was an announcement from Pokemon that PTCGI, the international company, that they
TPCI.
announced TP, yes, the Pokemon Company International. Yes, I my dyslexia kicks in there. That they're going to be banning Duskull from Cosmic Eclipse because of and once you know what the card is, Duskull is the pre-evolution of the Dusclops, which is the card that it does place 5 damage counters on one Pokemon and it knocks itself out. But there's the Duskull, the older Duskull, that's an expanded format that has the ability, once during a turn, you may discard 3 cards from hand. If you do, search your deck for a card that evolves in this Pokemon, put it onto this Pokemon, shuffle your deck. So you can evolve into Dusclops turn one, and you can potentially do a whole lot of Dusclops turn one. And obviously, there's a lot of recovery cards, so you can't do it more than 5 times because then you have given up your 6 prizes. But that's a lot of damage, and it makes Donk very viable. And it's it's unfun to play against Donk for 2 reasons. First, you just sit there watching your opponent do things, and then the other part of it is your opponent's doing things for a long time usually. You and I think I made a video with this Duskull expanded Donk deck. I think you might have as well. And when it pulled on the games where you pull it off, you have often very long turns. And I kind of feel very bad for my opponent just sitting there watching me take actions for 3 minutes while they do nothing all game and
I
then
feel like it's
lose.
more than 3 minutes, and that's in live where things are like faster. I feel like it
Yeah.
was like maybe it's not that much more, but and you said you can only knock yourself out 5 times and not lose, but that's not true in full expanded, right? You have Life Dew. Life Dew is a nice
Correct.
spec card that says it's similar to Legacy Energy. It's obviously not an energy, it's a tool here. But the big difference, I guess, in this case is that if the Pokemon this card is not attached to is knocked out, your opponent takes one for your prize card. This does not have to be from damage, from attacks, from it can just be anything.
Right.
It's like completely applicable. It can be recovered as well, so you can do it as much as you want. It's a tool. It's kind of awkward to recover. You need Lana's Pokemon. No, Lana's what is it? Um, Lana's
Um,
fishing rod. There we go. And
right.
something like that. Eco. I don't remember. There are cards though that can recover tools, and then of course you can recover Pokemon. So you can just do Duskull, Dusclops theoretically as many times as you want, and so then you can just you can theoretically do it like 8 times or something. So I don't know exactly how easy that is to do, or if it's really that doable at all. But it is something that makes it even stronger in the full version of Expanded, which I haven't heard talked about much, if at all.
Right. The odd thing, and we were both surprised about it because we saw the announcement on Poke Beach, and they announced that incorrectly. So we weren't sure if they got it wrong, that it was from the Pokemon Company International. And internationally, it hasn't been an expanded event since I don't know when. Events typically come from Japan first, where they do have some expanded events, and then internationally get adopted after the fact. But this one, I mean, I think it was announced in Japan the following day, so it's essentially the same time. Um, so which is fine. It makes sense. We'll talk about bans and some of the impacts with it in all with it. Part of the logic, and we'll talk about why bans and what gets banned is right. You can donk your opponents. Donk's no fun, and then many cards. There's why this particular card, right? Because it could have banned the new Dusclops as well. Many cards are required to assemble the combo that allows this strategy to be dangerous, but Duskull has the lowest overall impact on other strategies that are used in expanded format, so it was chosen to be banned. So they're deliberately choosing what strategies they think most people play, and they're also choosing what strategies they want people to play too. As we kind of will consider what else they say. They want the game played a certain way, and they're trying to steer it that to a certain extent.
Yeah, when for people who don't know what donk is, honestly, the term's used for a lot of things that
Mm.
are like kind of similar or like not that similar at all. But pretty
Yeah.
much it's you win the game in the first turn, and you knock out all your opponent's Pokemon. You don't usually take 6 prizes. You take a few prizes and probably knock out one Pokemon, maybe two, and just win that way.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of times it's one Pokemon, and if your opponent like you go first, your opponent goes second, you only get one Pokemon in the active spot, boom, your opponent knocks it out. Or possibly, if you go first, but on your second turn, which is the first time you can attack, they only have one Pokemon to play. Maybe that's Donk. But yeah,
Yeah,
there's
or
some
turn one
range
going
of
second as
meaning.
well. In standard, I feel like it's usually turn one going second. Although with the Pecker Run, which is banned, is banned in standard or was at the World Championships, which was around the
Hmm.
time this was released. The ban, I don't think it was at the World Championships, but um, anyway, Pecker Run was banned. It is a donk card, but it's not banned because donk card is banned because Pokemon like did some weird printing thing where they printed it only in like one region or certain regions, and so not everyone has access to it, and then all of a sudden you have issues there. So that's like a ban, but it's a different type of ban. I will say
Yeah.
bans are generally the idea that they're there to fix mistakes when a card is and too it's problematic in some manner. And Packrun being banned is an example of there being a mistake where they're printing it in a way that doesn't give equal access to it. But also, it's not the same thing. It's not banned because of what it does. It's banned because of how they printed it.
Yeah, and I don't even know if that's a mistake, right? They have their logic to how they want to dole things out to make different regions and communities feel special, right? So they give them early access and stuff. So there's some cards every year at Worlds that some cards are banned because everyone doesn't have access to them. And we're not talking about those type of bans. We're talking about bans that are because of card design issues and gameplay issues, right? That create what are considered unenjoyable or unbalanced gameplay.
Yeah,
Um,
and I will say
Go
I
ahead.
think Dusclops or the Duskull combo in live expanded in my experience at least is definitely too good. I played it. I felt like I mean my opponents it's really hard to find good people on expanded ladder in my maybe not necessarily good players, but and when I mean good, I mean like I'm gonna be completely like if you're a new player, you're probably not that good. Of course, nothing wrong with being a new player. It's really fun to get into the game and to enjoy it at your own way, but also
Yeah.
like if you're playing like it's not what anyone wants if I don't want to be I don't want to really be playing Donk. I played a few games on video and then just stopped. But like I don't really want to be playing against a new player. They don't want to be playing against me. And then I have played against people who aren't new players who are or probably aren't new players who are playing decks that are just rotated standard decks or something like that. The meta's like it's not only just not defined, it's like no one's even like trying to play decks that are like super good. Even the decks I play, like I don't know, a lot of them are just very similar to old standard decks with a few tweaks. So I feel like and that's what some people do, a lot of people do, so it's hard to
Yeah.
find um and that's like the best case scenario you're gonna find. It's hard to find really like good expanded decks. And play against people because the format's not very developed, but also I don't know. It just
But
people probably don't play it as much, so it's hard to find matches too.
yeah. Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, right, the format, it's not full expanded in live, right? It's Sun and Moon on. So you're missing two full blocks of cards. So if you look at the decks that you can find online from tournaments, you can't none of them you can fully play basically because they all have cards you're not allowed to use in live at this point. And it's not a rank ladder. You can't no events, which two things you can't do friends matches, which means you can't play your friends. Also, they can't do tournaments, and if there are tournaments being run, things would get developed more. So I don't know how many tournaments there be, but it would definitely speed up development there. And also, there's no rank ladder. So I think in unranked mode, it's very random who you pair up against. So it kind of discourages top players to a certain extent, and it's just very random who you get into, right? Sometimes you have long waits. At times, I'll see that in live. So I think because expanded format is kind of fun, but it's just such a mishmash. It's kind of difficult.
Yeah. Also, I mean, since Shrouded Fable came out, which is the set with the Dusclops that caused the
Yeah,
Duskull to be banned, the live ladder, I mean, any of the ladders I haven't played the standard casual ladder, but I assume it would be the same thing in there. But I've been pairing into the same people over and over again. Not like every game, but I've certainly if I sit down and play 5 games, I'm probably going to hit the same person multiple times. And that's not good, right? So, but I found that much worse
yeah.
and expanded because people aren't playing as much. And and then it's just happening. So that's kind of annoying. It's hard to I don't know. I mean, you don't really want to be playing against, as I said, if you're against someone of a different like uh skill level, you don't really want to be doing that, or a certain matchups, you don't want to be doing that, even if you are
Right.
the same skill level. And so, it's not really fun for anyone. And so, that also like discourages people some as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm neither of us, I think, are very thrilled about live now. I do think eventually the expanded format will get sorted out, but today's discussion is not on live, right? So I think we've probably said as much as we want to say about live at this point.
Yeah, our discussions on Pocket. No, there's nothing to say about that either, unfortunately.
The Worlds isn't finished, so maybe by the time the podcast drops, World will be done. Maybe maybe they'll announce the release of Pocket, and everyone's just be playing Pocket from now on.
Yeah,
Who
maybe
knows?
like
But
Pocket will be insane. It'll like actually work, and you can actually play it, and it's not going to cost like your
well,
life savings to like get a rogue deck or something. Who knows?
maybe Pocket is definitely going to be monetized and possibly heavily monetized,
Yeah,
right? So
Pocket is not Pokemon TCG Live. They are complete opposites, probably. I guess the only one thing they're not opposites on is the slow development process, which seems like a theme among everything with a Pokemon TCG in terms of online clients. But
yeah,
I don't know. Let's not get too down in the dumps
no,
with the online client. Let's get down in the dumps about banned cards. Um,
right. Let me just say first, you said they're banning cards to fix mistakes. That's somewhat true, and we're not going to go through all the cards that are banned and why, because that's going to take too long. We're going to talk about concepts, I think, largely higher level. I'm sure we'll talk about some cards along the way, though, because that would be necessary. But a lot of it, rather than mistakes, the only ones that are mistakes is a couple cards that were actually banned in standard format. And so I think that's a mistake in that case. These are largely interactions of small combos because expanded, you have such a large pool of cards, right? So I don't know if it's a mistake necessarily if the card worked well in standard format,
I
right?
guess. I mean, it
So
depends. You could say like it depends if they really care about expanded, right? If they think expand is just this fun like side idea, which I guess is kind of fair, then bans are fine and like whatever. But also if they actually are designing cards for it, which they sometimes are, there some of the cards are definitely very much so designed with expanded in mind, and we're going to talk about some of that as well, because we're going to
yeah,
talk about like Scoop Up Net and Island Challenge Amulet. No, maybe not Island Challenge Amulet, but there's some weird things that like interact kind of strangely with like different generations specifically with different
right.
mechanics. And Pokemon has kind of like worked to improve it, but not exactly. So do you want to start there, or is there somewhere else you want to go?
I mean, just one is there's certain categories of cards that are banned. So of all, like I'll just say that, but then there's like how are bans good and how things get addressed. I think there's bans against such with this Duskull cards that allow you to evolve quickly. There's a number of cards that's what they do that have been banned. There's cards that are banned that self KO, which a lot of times has to do with the evolving cards. So these things are linked, but there's kind of a set of cards that self KO, and then there's card removal, cards that get rid of your opponent, control your opponent's hand, or get rid of things, right? And for the most part, most of the bans are control oriented. Probably 95% of them are, I would say. There's a few, at least one card that basically said it's too good, and there's some odd win conditions that I might be unique, but largely it's control, which they have their thoughts about, and then it's very specific combinations of cards for the most part, right? And then also, well, I guess the other thing is to me categories the rule box issue. There's some cards which you already mentioned, Scoop Up Net, which when it was printed, you couldn't scoop up GXs and Vs. But then with the EXs old and new, you could scoop those up, and that's why it got banned, right? So it's that broader card pool, right? That's the type of thing. Was it a mistake with how they worded Scoop Up Net or not? We could debate that. And then should it have been banned? Should it have been errata? That type of
Yeah,
thing.
so do you want to get into that thing, the one I mentioned earlier first with the like ScoopNet and stuff?
Yeah, why don't we jump into that? Yeah.
Yeah, so as is Scoop Up Net, so it's very similar to the card Scoop Up Cyclone, but Scoop Up Cyclone's an ace spec, and Scoop Up Net is I think it's the newest ban outside of the well, I guess it is the newest ban because the
It,
Duskull isn't banned yet. So
right. I
um,
think it's the only ban that's in what Sword and Shield, right? There's nothing from Scarlet and Violet, and I think this is the only yeah, Sword
so
and Shield card that's been banned.
Yeah,
thus far.
and this one was banned in the the Scarlet and Violet era with the printing of Iron Valiant EX. Iron Valiant
Right.
EX is a Pokemon that is not that good in standard. It's not like that bad. It's an okay Pokemon, but it has its ability to attack in bits, which says on string a turn when this Pokemon moves from the bench to the active, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And if you don't know effects of abilities, including like the fact that you've used ability, right? You can only use this once during your turn, but if you play Scoop of
Right.
Net to put this back into your hand, you can reuse it. So Iron Valiant EX is like solid, allowing you to donk your opponent. So this is another donk card, but it was
Yeah.
also very good with some other things, including Shaymin-EX, a Jirachi
Yes.
GX. I mean, any sorry, no EX. They're all EX. It's the one that's really good, too good with.
Right, because it specifically says on Scoop Up Net GXs and Vs, which were obviously the ones in standard at the time. So the older EXs, the capital EXs, were a problem, like Shaymin-EX, and then the obviously the Iron Valiant being the lowercase EX, the new one. So, and we've seen some cards since Scoop Up Net that they've changed the terminology to rule box Pokemon, right? Which I think would have made Scoop Up Net fair if it had had that text. You couldn't pick up any rule box Pokemon.
Yeah, and I believe the first card to introduce this was Empoleon V. I could be wrong. This is the one I remember introducing it, but it could have been something
Okay.
else. And so it has an ability that does something. Doesn't really matter what it does, but it says it doesn't affect Pokemon with rule boxes, which are Pokemon V's, GXs, etc. have rule boxes. So that list is literally ignoring the etc. That's the same thing that ScoopOutNet like interacts with. And
Right.
at the time, I don't remember if there was anything. There must have been. There was Prism Stars, and there were this is where it gets really complicated in terms of like with alternate formats, banning rule box cards is pretty common. But then rule box cards, when Pokemon talks about rule box cards, they're just talking about rule box Pokemon. So then are like Prism Star
Right.
cards, like certainly Prism Star Pokemon are rule box Pokemon, but then it is like a Prism Star Stadium's not rule box, and it gets really complicated. But anyways, so it does also impact Radiant Pokemon. So I'm gonna talk about like Mimikyu,
Yes.
right? Mimikyu is a card that is in Paldea Evolved with its ability Safeguard. We've seen this ability a lot. It says prevent damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon EX and Pokemon V, but it doesn't say rule
Right.
box. So to me that like always felt kind of weird. Sure, it doesn't involve Radiant Greninja and Radiant Charizard, which makes it a little worse, but I feel like that's not like the balance defining like aspect. That's not why they did it that way.
Right, because before this, what was the previous the Miltank, right? That was the one that walled off GXs and Vs, right? Because that
No,
was also from
Miltank I
or
believe just walled off V's.
the one
I could be wrong. I think it just
the
yep.
one that was played with Blissey, right?
Yeah, that just
Yeah,
walled off V's.
just Vs, sorry. Which
GXs weren't
um
in the format, I believe.
and I think GX is right. It was an F block, so it was just V's and formats. So that did it again. That is walled off all rule box in format. Well, not the
Radiance.
radiance,
Yeah.
which is meaningful as well. But it rolled off all of the big multi-prize rule box Pokemon, right? Which was the big issue. But then once the EXs came in, it fell off a lot. So it's similar to obviously the Mimikyu, right? It does the EXs and Vs, but not GXs or uppercase EXs that are playable in full expanded mode. Um, so is that good or not? Obviously, I guess the question becomes in this case, if it said all rule box, maybe these would become too powerful, right? Because one thought I had is, what if you just did a sweeping errata that said anything that talks about any type of rule box Pokemon, we just errata it automatically to all rule box Pokemon.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna bring up some things that I'm just thinking on the spot here. These are kind of stupid things. So there's some things that say you can't copy GX attacks that like now also include V-Star power attacks. For example, Marshadow from what was it? Was it Cosmic Eclipse? No, wait, I think there's two. No, there's just one. So it says choose one of your opponent's active non-GX attacks and uses this attack. So that stop V-Star power attacks. But and then also I don't know. I feel like there's like it gets a little weird. Rule boxes don't extend. So we're talking expanded, but obviously expanded isn't everything, right? There are old cards.
Right.
And so the rule box mechanic thing only extends like so far back. So then there are things that like are pretty much the same as rule boxes that like aren't rule boxes, so that gets a little complicated. And then something you look at like ancient traits and like terror mechanics and stuff, and it gets a little weird, but
Right. Right. I
so
mean, look, I think we have enough complications with the expanded format, right? Because a lot of because the bans are because of especially the older cards, right? Like we said with the Sword and Shield block, where there's only been one ban to date, and there's about to be a second ban. I think some of the cards that had specific issues, which you already mentioned, Shaymin-EX, because you could keep reutilizing its ability. You draw 6 cards. You have 6 cards in hand. You could repeat it. Like when they put the Crobat V, it's the same ability, but then it said you can only use that ability once per turn. So they've kind of, as the games develop, they have gotten better, I think, at fixing and avoiding some of these issues from cropping up down the road.
yeah, and so honestly, yeah. Do you want to talk about Shaymin-EX now? I kind of want to talk about Shaymin-EX now.
Yeah, I mean it's super powerful. Obviously, you're more of a older format kind of guy than I am, but it's super powerful. I mean I know what it is as well, and it's got when you play this Pokemon onto your bench, you can draw. You have 6 cards in hand, so very nice and no limitation. You could do it, and of course, Scoop Up Net could scoop it up, which obviously that led to kind of the initial ban. And actually, attack was pretty good for 2 energies, and you have a double colorless. It does 30, not which although the format back then was lower HP, but also then it shuffles back in your deck. So one energy attachment, you could shuffle it back in and get
No,
out
well,
of play as
into your
well.
hand, yeah.
Into your hand, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, that was like a solid attack. Not obviously not the reason it was banned. By the way, cards like this often have attacks that get them out of play. Not all of them, but Dedenne GX does its GX attack. Shaymin-EX
Yep.
does. No, not Tapu Lele. Lumineon V has an attack if you play
Right.
Lugia or more other things. It's that. But then you also have I'm looking at Limitless here, and apparently it's not banned in. Oh, I clicked something wrong. It's not banned in Japanese expanded, which I assume is true. Which is interesting. I didn't. I mean, I don't know much about expanded like in general because who's playing it, but um, that's interesting and not something I was super aware of.
Well, based on Bulbapedia, it sounds like it's banned, though. It says it was banned in 2020 from all Pokemon TCG expanded tournaments, and it still remains banned even after Scoop of Net was banned, right? Which is part of the discussion. When Scoop of Net was banned, maybe should Shaman V EX have become unbanned? Because that was the initial right that pushed it into being needed to be banned.
Yeah, let me check because this is like
The format, whether it's legal in Japanese tournaments or not, right? That's what you're trying to look into now.
yeah, it just is weird. Well, technically expanded is only the international format. I mean, maybe not. It's really complicated. Um,
Although
but
internationally, there hasn't been an expanded format
I
since
know.
right
So
the
this
end of
thing
the
like is
lockdown.
weird. Um,
There's been like only, as far as I know, I've seen like one Japanese official expanded format, or at least on Limitless, like one report. Right, they only report certain things. And so I mean, there are some kind of online tournaments that may do it, but you can't if you're doing live, you can't do full expanded. Um, are you looking for? Are you still looking? Should I talk for
you
another
can
minute?
no, I'm not done. I'm looking at expanded tournaments. So since Shroud, oh, there haven't been any expanded tournaments since Shroud of Fable. There have been two since Twilight Masquerade. I think I have to take a look at these. I don't think I made a video. The format's
Okay.
also like full expanded is kind of bad. Um, like the best deck in the game is well, there's 2 decks. The one deck that's being played most here in online tournaments is a combo deck. So it's Electrode GX with Alolan Raichu, which is weird. There's Alolan Raichu. There's also this Starmie. Then they're essentially the same, but they're not exactly the same. So Alolan Raichu works with Reversal Energy and Counter Energy, and it's a board wipe card. And there's not that much counterplay. There is some counterplay. You could play like Manphy and Mew and stuff, but it's not great. And then the other top deck, I think, is let me see if I can find it, but it's a control deck, which we're going to talk about. Control definitely. Okay, I can't find it, but it's like really good. It pretty much okay, yeah, it's the Bumblebee Team Evolution Vileplume deck. It's like Rowlet Lonely Executor with Vileplume, but instead of
Yeah.
the tag team, you use a single prizer, so that's better. And then you can like it's just a really solid deck. Oh, and apparently it plays the Duskull, at least the list I'm looking at. So that's gonna get cut. But yeah,
Yeah. Now one of the things I'll say, part of the fun of expanded, in talking and even who plays live is on live in particular. Sometimes it's a chance to go to play a deck that's rotated that I like to play, right? I'll do that at times. And as cards get banned, there's just a lot of decks I can't play. Like a lot of the decks I played Scoop Up Net. That's banned. So now I can't play it on live ever, right? Unless they create an unlimited format. I can't play it against in any situation, which is unfortunate, right? And
Yeah.
and actually, this Duskull, I liked it. We had a kind of a silly deck that it took advantage of the discarding, right, to thin your hand. A Mad Party deck to you know the Duskull and the Galarian Meowth, right, that had discarded two, a similar type of thing. Again, just to discard, I liked it. And those obviously it wasn't an overpowered deck, but I liked playing it. And again, because of this ban, because of something completely different, I can't play that deck, and that deck is removed from the ability to play, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the reason Pokemon so with Dusclops versus Duskull, right? They said they banned Duskull the basic because they said they seemed to think it was less impactful to the format, right?
Right. Yeah. That it's yeah, that there's less decks that are going to get hurt by banning that one. They said particularly, yeah, the lowest overall impact on other strategies used in expanded format.
But to me that doesn't make sense. I mean, like obviously it's somewhat speculative because right now Dusclops sees no play. I mean, it sees in
Very
expanded it sees play with Duskull, but also it hasn't been out really at all. I mean, in tournaments, it's hasn't ever been legal in expanded tournament because
right.
they don't exist. So yeah, and then Duskull, like, so it discards three cards from your hand. You do need a card deck to use it, but it's pretty like it's solid. In certain use cases, the expanded format you play out of the discard pile some. If you're familiar with Battle Compressor, that card's very good. I've heard
Right.
talks of people like wanting it to be banned, and that like discard stuff, and then you have lots of ways to get stuff out of the discard, and then also sometimes times when you want a small hand, which we might talk about. I don't know if we're going to talk about that, but there have been cards that have been banned or caused bans because of like there's maxes and archies, which are interesting
Hmm.
cards.
Yeah. So you mentioned Puzzle of Time there, right? So
Did I?
what did you say? You didn't. Well, I
No,
was
I
looking
don't.
at something.
I don't
All
know.
right.
I didn't say puzzle time. I don't know. I said maxes and archies.
What you said something
Um,
before that I thought, but
I talked about
anyway,
I'm not
Anyway, it
sure.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter. So this one they banned it for right or wrong because it's played less, right? I mean, Duskull, the one they're banning, has been in expanded for a bit. I imagine, obviously, there's not a lot of expanded play, so that's one trickiness of how do they decide what's actually impactful. But I imagine the Duskull hasn't been played in a lot of decks, right? So they're trying in a sense to protect the main decks that people like, and they're willing to get rid of the fringe decks, which in one sense to me, the fringe decks are where it's in fun and interesting. So that's a bit unfortunate from my perspective that they're trying to define the deck pool, right? Which
Yeah.
they have to
But
do to
oh
extent.
yeah. Oh, I think I probably said puzzle instead of like, or I said Duskull and then you thought I said puzzle. Anyway,
Okay,
so but like what's Duskull played in expanded? Like I guess you could play something like Charizard deck or something, but
right.
and Charizard's like getting expanded, I guess. It's hard to say. I played it some in live expanded. It's actually quite good. I mean, it's good in standard. It's not
Hmm.
the best.
You're
Oh,
you're,
it's
t-
pretty good though.
you're talking what's Dusclops played in, right? In expanded
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I might have misspoke.
Outside of the Donk deck, because I mean I
Yeah.
get it why Donk isn't fun.
You know,
Um,
I think it's too good as well. And in playing it, it was like absurdly, it was pretty consistent. Um, like I think I played like four games. I won three of them, and the one I lost was honestly because I got unlucky. It's not like I was making insane plays either. I was playing pretty mediocre. It was like super mediocre gameplay, but I was just winning because the deck was good. And I think my opponent started a Pokemon with 220 HP, so I needed to knock myself out five times. I managed to only do 200 damage, and
yeah,
I prized two of my stage ones, which is rough. I think the list played, and I had some awkward discards. The deck certainly will have awkward discards, just based on
yeah.
how I built it. So that wasn't like super unlucky, but the prizing was a pretty big deal, and I was still able to almost win as well, despite that, against like really almost worst case scenario.
Yeah, and then full expanded, which you don't have in live, would be even better because then you have like what the execute is that the one the propagate ability
Yes,
that you
because you
can
need to discard the 3 cards from your hand to trigger the evolution thing. But yeah, then you just can essentially ignore that, or mostly
right
ignore
with
it.
propagate. It's got the ability to just put it back directly from the discard pile into your hand. I think it says like once per turn, but every time you do it, it resets it. So it's a bit that I
Yeah,
think that text
execute.
is
Was it propagate or is it propagation?
it's one of those, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
even
that's the one.
better. Obviously, you have a lot of great cards in in full expanded, it gets really powerful. Now part of expanded in one sense, you could say it's kind of a degenerate form in some sense because the decks are really powerful, right? So so
I mean,
therefore
that's
it
true in
limits what.
standard. The decks are really powerful in
Yeah.
standard too. I mean, it's kind of subjective, but yeah, like I'm gonna look at. Let me find some. Let me find the most recent in-person tournaments of expanded in either expanded format, and so we got Japanese and international expanded. So we got a few tournaments. So looking at the top 16 here, the meta game is 5 of the decks are Regidraco. Now Regidraco is a
Mhm.
fun deck, right? Right? No, it's not. This deck is actually control. It had ability locks and item locks, and takes it like walls and special energy locks. So no, it's actually like just control. And then the second most played deck is just control. It's Vileplume control with the bundle. The third deck is the combo deck, which just board wipes you. So there isn't really anything interesting. They can literally attack like once across the entire game. And then the other deck, you got Iron Thorns. That's the best you're getting. No, that's not the people's favorite deck. And then there's Lugia. Oh, Lugia, that's so fun, right? What
Yeah.
does Lugia?
So
I'm trying to
is
wait.
that a
Let me.
control or is that just hoping the Luke? I mean, Luke is good when it works. When it sets up, you're going with
Yeah,
it.
I'm trying to see the Lugia lists. I
Yeah,
think
this
it was
may.
let me see. Okay, yeah, Lugia is not control. It doesn't play any well, it plays a few control cards, but it's mostly not control.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
prize, right? It's an aggressive prize taking deck.
yeah, and
Deck
then
it
there's
looks like to
Gouging
me.
Fire and UV Max, everyone's favorite deck. So, and then looking at there's a tournament in an international one, and now we see some cards that are banned. The Japanese one doesn't really have any banned cards. The top deck it's a handlock deck essentially, where handlock, if you don't know it, removes all the cards from your opponent's hand, which is
Right.
not so great to play against. And then control, and then stall, and then more control, stall, and then ADP. So we got something fun there. No,
Everybody's favorite deck to play
yeah.
against.
I mean, this
Yeah.
stall actually max deck isn't exactly stall, but it certainly has serious stall elements to it. It's not like that you can't have fun with like control and stall, right? But also like something fun.
It's a small subset of players that like it. Let me read this. This is one of Pokemon's explanations for some bans to explain their thinking. And stopping control is a big part of it. Now, this is the explanation that went along with they banned a lot of cards, which we will not discuss, but they're not that long ago. Chip Ice Axe, Lieutenant Surge's Strategy, Reset Stamp, some of those cards, right, which you may be familiar with, all made a very brutal control hand lock combination potentially in standard even, right? So in expanded, it gets
Yeah, it
crazy.
wasn't
So
great in standard. It was like okay, it was really good if it got set up, but it was really hard to set up.
yeah, it was a race to set up if the control player could set up, and it wasn't easy to play. And that's also I'm okay with that too. It wasn't guaranteed, and it was I think very difficult decision making the whole time too. So, but what they said for these things, most of these card bans are an attempt to weaken strategies that involve disrupting or destroying an opponent's hand. These cards contribute to several combos that result in a player having to discard their entire hand before they get to take a turn, which I that's not fun. And then it says that the expanded format currently has a reputation of being dominated by hand disruption decks, which many players dislike. Hopefully, these card bans will promote a more enjoyable environment and change that reputation. So that's their logic behind it. People don't like control. Expand is dominated by control, and you just went through, of course, the decks in expanded right now, and there are a lot of control still there.
Yeah. Oh, so I want to take a quick pivot. I think there's
Yes.
something I want to talk about. There was a new A spec revealed, and
Okay.
it's interesting. It says discard all tools cards, special energy cards, and stadium cards attached to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So that's interesting. But they don't like control, right? So
Oh,
Who
that's
knows what
just,
that's about?
I mean, because if we talked about some of these cards, and we've just talked about it offline, and we might do it some here, it's like some of these particular cards they banned in the past, they're printing cards recently that are kind of right up there, and we've talked about Snorlax enough, and like Snorlax is it's rough, they just, and it's just a control card, and it's a very just chuck it out there control card. And like the new what Xernex, what's the one that you
Yeah,
discard, your opponent
Zervosix
discards down to,
Machination.
yeah, which again is a pretty powerful card,
I don't
I
think
would
it's that
say.
good. I think it's not good. I think it's like a mediocre card. I mean, it's
I,
solid in control, but
I mean, it's you just like having a copy, I think, in like a Snorlax deck is a good thing.
it
I
is.
will
I
argue
think
for
that's
that.
fair, but
But they keep, like you're saying with the new card, they keep printing control cards, and they keep banning them and expanded, right? And it seems like it's a bit of a, they have this love hate relationship with it. It seems like.
yeah. So I want to talk about the what is it? So in speaking of like control cards that are banned, Sableye and well, specifically Sableye. Sableye so there's an Oranguru that for one colorless energy recovers um 3 cards from your discard pile and puts on the bottom of your deck. I believe that's what it does. That is very strong. It recovers anything, and it is what it's colorless. It's a single prizer. It's with solid HP. I think it's got to be okay at least. It's nothing insane, but and then
The anger, it's 120,
okay, so like
and
good, but
the
nothing.
attack is for one colorless energy. So,
Yeah.
which means you can power it up and you can chuck it in any deck of any type you want.
Yeah, and then you have, so I think that's like, it's super good. Is it ban worthy? I mean, it ended up being banned, and I don't think that's crazy. But then Sableye, and this is for 2 darkness, and this card was, good in standard. It wasn't really that, was it good in expanded? I don't know, to be
No,
honest, if it was that good in expanded, because like Orangutan was kind
no,
of better than,
the Sableye that's banned. You're
yeah,
talking about? I think the attack is one energy, the one that puts two items back into your hand.
yeah.
It's one darkness energy. I
No,
thought
yeah,
you
what did
said
I
two.
say?
I thought you said two, but maybe I'm
No, I
mishearing.
didn't, yeah, I don't think I said that. So,
Okay,
So it's not like I don't know how much play it saw though. I mean, like I think it saw some, and it was just good in standard. But there's one darkness though, and that's definitely worse than colorless. It is usable certainly, but also it's definitely much more I don't know. It's more awkward, and it recovers 2 cards and they go to your hand, which is better, but they can only be item cards. And this
right,
doesn't even include tool cards now either. So we might talk about like ruling changes and how those affect bans or don't affect bans, which is kind of weird. But yeah, I definitely think Sableye like that doesn't need to be banned. Like it's a control card, but it's not some like
right.
insanely broken control card. Like the Bumblebee from which is currently arguably the best deck in format is from what is it, Primal Clash? Oh, apparently there's 2 Bumblebees from Primal Clash. I pulled up. This one does
You hit the
10
wrong
for
one.
2. Um, that's not right. So Primal Clash 121. There we go. So it can for one colorless it either discards one or shuffles a card from your discard into your deck. But of course, and these are both from one colorless. But you have the ancient trait Omega Barrage, which says you can attack twice in a turn. I think Bumblebee's pretty interesting. I think it's a fun card, and it has some cool interactions. But also it's like really good in expanded. It allows for turn one item lock. It allows for um, like tons of resource recovery and mill. It's all mixed together, which I think like control is interesting, but
Mhm.
this card, I feel like if Sableye is banned, then this card should also be banned.
Yeah, I mean, how far to go is its own. It's tricky as well, right? And even cards, like Battle Compressor versus Seeker, which are great cards, and I'd be sad to see them banned. They allow crazy stuff too, right? And to me, maybe it's very, it gets tricky, and as it's certain combinations, like I think I mentioned, could they ban combinations? It all gets a little weird out there.
Yeah, like
Um,
I think so. You mentioned, and you didn't really say this. We talked about it before the podcast about banning combinations of cards.
yeah,
So like, I mean, with like Duskull, Dusclops, or yeah, Duskull, Dusclops, they're solid by themselves. I mean, I don't know exactly how good Dusclops is in expanded, but presumably it's solid 'cause it's solid in standard.
right.
But is it I feel like it would be like pretty fair. So you could, what would you say? Like you can't play them in the same deck together?
Yeah, if you right, because like I said, I've enjoyed playing the Duskull, and they weren't an overpowered decks. Like thinning your hand is useful, but it's not making these crazy overpowered things. I don't think so. You could just ban the combo, which is true for a lot of things. A lot of these they're combos of a few cards generally that allow you to like the whole item like your locking opponent's deck is hand is a combination of cards and things that recover and stuff. There's certain combos. So could they say you can't play this card and this card together? And then it allows everyone more flexibility because I think that's part what you want in expanding. You want to allow people to do things. The more you expand things, the worse that is.
Yeah, I mean, well, there are times when cards are too good though, so you need to ban them. So then it actually opens up the meta more, but also like it's definitely not fun. Like Scoop-A-Net's, I think
Well,
Scoop-A-Net opens up really cool ideas. I'm a big fan of Pelipper from I think Pele Evolved, which like recovers stuff. It's not the bet. Wait, is Pelipper from? I think it was a pre-release promo. Oh, I can't spell it. So it was from yeah, Pele Evolved and it like recovers stuff. It's an on-playability, but you just can't play it. And I was like, oh, you can play an expanded, but now Scoop and expand, and now you just can't really play it. It's not close to good enough, and yeah, that's definitely
yeah,
disappointing.
I mean, but the idea, which they've done some of, like with Shaymin-EX, they banned it in large part, and why it's still banned even on Scoop Up Net is because it's too good, I think. But that's a weird thing, right? Because there's cards in standard format that everyone would at times often would say it's too good, right? If they had banned Genesect last
Yeah,
year,
V.
Genesect
Yeah.
V, that probably would have been a good thing. You would have probably most people would said that would be good, right? Because it was too good, right? So, but that's not what you do. It's kind of weird you ban something being too good. Let me just say Puzzle of Time, which I guess is a control card, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's part of the So there's
But
the Amulet Handlock deck, which is a deck on Limitless here,
okay,
and it
let,
has
let,
yeah,
let,
it has that.
let me hold on a second. Let me just read what their explanation is. The official explanation for banning Puzzle of Time, though. It says Puzzle of Time, which gives you two options, play one or two, but it's a flexible card that can be used in a wide variety of strategies, which I'd say that's great. Its usage rate is quite high in popular decks. I would say good again. It enables a lot of powerful combos, all generally good things. Removing this card from the environment will affect how many decks are constructed, which will hopefully make the expanded format feel fresh and different. So they're not saying it's control related. They're saying it's too good and too popular, and they just want to shake up the meta. And
That's
that's
kind of weird. I mean,
not
I don't think that's bad. I mean, I think, well, I mean, enabling, I think people like to see rogue cards getting played though. Like if every deck's playing four puzzle at a time, then it's not fun. I feel like. I mean, puzzle
okay.
at times like, I
Then
mean,
then then we should ban quick ball and nest ball
I mean, I've definitely heard people say
and stuff
like
like
the boss
that.
should be banned and stuff like that. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, they could like you could. I think those cards are too good. Puzzle at times it's banned because of control. I'm pretty sure.
I
Like
think you're right, but that's not what they said, which is
no,
kind of
but they also like some of the stuff they say is kind of weird and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think Puzzle Time. So looking at the Amulet Handlock deck, that's what it's called in Limitless. I don't know if that's the name. It's just called. Um,
mhm,
I don't know. Some of you like this is a weird deck and it doesn't even work in Expanded anymore because well it's banned, but also because they changed the supporter rule. But you could like turn one. Um, could you not? I don't know, remember if you could get rid of all your opponent's like cards. I don't think you could, but you could get rid of most of them, and then all of a sudden like they can't do anything. And so that
right.
was pretty strong, I would say. And then yeah, so
Yeah.
like
Look, I
that's
mean,
partially why it's banned.
I think it's a control. It was part of a control package, and I get that. The fact that they said it was too good and too widely used, that's to me a dumb reason to get rid of it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
would just
mean,
say,
like if they want to take that idea I guess they could. I mean, certainly like the cards like if they printed some card that just had absurd stats that like pushed everything else out of the meta, then that would like banning that would be fair. But like that's not what's happening here, and it's not like they always do that either. It's not consistent. So
right. So that's a weird logic to me. I'll just say that. Um, and yeah, I mean, obviously it's not fun when something's too dominant, but that's certainly in standard that they print cards that are overly dominant that most people think are bad for the situation. Leave it. So I think you can't do that in expanded. I will say on the Duskull uh, Bulb, Bulbapedia page, it gives a link to something called Dusclops Donk. So they actually have a Dusclops Donk page on Bulbapedia. So that's or Bulba Garden. So that's certainly an indication that that deck is too strong and has to be addressed.
yeah, I mean it's a very good deck, as I said. I think it's a very clearly ban worthy card, which to me like kind of annoys me that like why are they printing? I kind of show it. makes me feel like they don't care about expanded, which like I mean I kind of get, but also like they need to care about some format that's not standard. Ideally, I mean maybe
Yeah,
that's Pocket, right? The Pocket is a different format. And so that might be the other thing that
right.
they support, and that's fine. But I mean, it's not here yet, so it's not. I mean, so who knows? Maybe by the time this comes out on we're recording it on the Sunday, and maybe tomorrow on Monday when this comes out, Pocket will be out. Who knows? But
Right. Who
um,
knows?
probably
Eh,
not. So,
yeah, I mean, because like, but I'm just looking like the Duskull Donk deck. They're getting rid of Duskull. I get it. It's not played a lot. There, execute in that deck in full expanded is it impacts isn't a lot of decks, and some decks that are in a number of toxic decks. I think right.
I don't know.
In the
I mean,
past, some
is
cards
it like what?
that churn through. Well, it's in those decks that kind of churn through, right? And you sit there for a long time where your opponent just discards and makes move after move after move, right? Sometimes.
Yeah.
So again, it's just hard to know what to ban. Obviously, they're making a choice. I guess they have to. It's a little. It's I don't know. It's awkward, but anyway. Um.
Yeah, I don't think
So it,
execute like in because it's kind of in like basic like combo decks, but not like combo decks that are like locking your opponent out of the game, but more so combo decks like one of the decks that I think is cool that is not very good right now, but that's Archie's Blastoise, um, which is a pretty cool deck where I guess it doesn't even play Blastoise anymore. So but it's Archie's is in the hole. You get like no cards in hand. There's Max's in Baltric as well, which is like kind of the same thing. But it allows you to Arches in the Hole actually led to the banning of unknown damage, I believe. There was so I don't know if this is Dong. It didn't do any damage. Well, no, it did do damage, but all the damage was to you. Like,
yourself, right?
it can,
Unknown. Okay, that's yeah.
but it could
The
win turn
unknown.
one. Um,
That was if during your turn, if this Pokemon is the active and there are 66 or more damage counters on your bench Pokemon, you can use this ability and you win the game.
yeah, and so there are two ways to do this. There's an infinite combo, which by the way was like super long. Like you placed, I think you placed two damage counters at a time. And so you need what 66. So you do this combo 33 times, and this combo was like five different steps where you had this like tool that was like a Pokemon or a Pokemon that was like a tool, and then you like attach it. You play it, you'd attach it, and then you'd no, so you play it, you move damage, attach it, return it to your hand, and so you like do this over and over again, and it would take like a really long time, and your opponent would like no, and your turn would take like like 30 minutes. So maybe not 30 minutes. It would take a long time though. But there was a way to do it turn going first with unknown, or no, with unknown damage, and then with RTJs in the hole. I think you had it was some stadium. It was
Okay.
I don't know. You'd like attach a bunch of energy and then like return them back to your hand and then attach them again, which is kind of funny. I wanted to mention it because it's funny.
Okay, and this was Archie's Ace in the Hole, a supporter back when you could play a supporter turn one, correct?
Yeah, so you can't actually do get trigger unknown damage turn going first, as far as I'm aware.
Right. So, and then there are certain thick cards that are banned that have been supporters, and part of it was because your opponent couldn't do anything, couldn't play any cards from hand before they got a turn, which a lot of times relied on a supporter being played. But now they changed the supporter rule, which they unbanned what Wally and I think at least one other supporter, if
Yeah,
I recall.
Lusamine as well, although that wasn't because of the supporter rule, as far as I'm
You're
aware.
right. And there's other supporters that maybe should get unbanned now because they're not doing the impact is lessened because you can't do it your first turn of the
Yeah,
game
it's
going
definitely kind
first.
of weird in that way. Like the Amulet Handlock deck, there were lots of cards that were banned from that deck, and you really needed like everything maybe not everything, but most of it to work. And so like Chip Chip Ice Axe is probably a problem, but like also Mars is like discards cards from your hands. I always think this card's banned, but like you need I think Iron Challenge Amulet doesn't need to be banned because that's a self knockout card. It's exclusively a self knockout card. And then essentially exclusively that. And then also you
Right.
have Surge's Strategy, which is banned, but also like it's a turn one combo. And you could do it turn one going second. I mean, well, like everything's banned from it, but theoretically you could like do it turn one going second. But you can't do it turn one going first, so your opponent would have a turn to play cards at the very least.
Yeah, and see a card like Leonard Surge's strategy, which I honestly, at face value, I think is fair potential. It's just that combination. It's a supporter. You can only play it if your opponent has more prize. If you have more prize cards than your opponent, and which is why the self knockout in these decks is a big deal. It allows you to play 3 supporters. But before you get on your turn, before you get too excited, you only get to play 2 more supporters because you've played one with Planet Surge's strategy. So essentially, it allows you to play 2 supporters, not counting the
You can play
Surge.
3 Lieutenant Surge's strategy. I actually
You
don't know
can
if you can do
you
that.
can
I think you
play
can, but
well.
I'm
You
not
can play
sure.
4, right? Because
What?
once you play it, oh no, it doesn't 3. It's not 3 more. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's 2, or it's 3 in total.
Yeah.
It's not 2 more. But then there's Magnezone, which is like pretty similar. It's an ability that lets you just like play 2. So I feel like it's kind of weird because that technically should enable like the same combos. I mean, yeah, so that's kind of weird. Um and there's like Lusamine Lieutenant Surge's strategy I think enabled some stuff that was like kind of silly. But also I don't know, you know. Like Lusamine could recover itself. It got banned and then got unbanned, but um yeah.
Right. That one got unbanned. I think when something else got banned, if I recall.
Maybe was it? I don't know. It might have had to do with the. I'm not
Let's
sure
see.
why that one got unbanned. I'm not sure why. I think it was just like too good of a control card.
You put any combination of 2 supporters and stadiums from your disc piles in your hand. And part of it talking about how they fix things, right? So that you could recover Lusamine with it too, right? So that was part of the issue. So if we think about Team Yell's cheer, you can't recover Team Yell's cheer with it. And that doesn't go to hand,
Yeah.
it goes to deck, but they're trying to again fix some of these issues, I think, with future cards.
But then
It
you have
was
Silene, so you can like still loop stuff. So I feel like they like kind of fix stuff, but not entirely.
yeah. Lusamine was unbanned when they banned Lieutenant Surge's strategy.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. So because those two together were very strong,
Right.
I
And
guess too
and because
strong.
it was a stalling strategy, right? You could Lieutenant Surge, you could Lusamine, and then play a third supporter that turn, right? That
Yeah.
and just kind of loop whatever you wanted to do. I'm guessing so. Within that, one of the cards I was looking at here was now I lose? I lost that card I was looking at. Do you have something to say while I
No,
try to remember what I was
I
doing?
don't know. So no, I
All right,
don't.
well, I was going to talk about Lieutenant Lysandre's trump card, which you like, and you've played this competitively, correct?
Well, I played in
Back in your
GLC.
GLC day, yeah,
Yeah,
and now it's
GLC.
been banned,
Yeah,
I think.
it got banned because it's like the most absurd card. It's not the most absurd card ever. I heard people playing who played other games seem to say like if this card was in that game, it wouldn't be broken, which like seems I don't know. I don't really play other card games, but this card seems like super like broken. Like
Okay, well,
so
let me. I want
each
to go ahead.
so it says each player shuffles all cards from their discard pile into their deck, except for Lysander's trump card, so it doesn't recover itself. Except in the
Yeah,
same
which is
set, they
good.
printed the Versus Seeker, which is an item that allows you to recover any supporter. So it doesn't really matter at all. So
Yeah,
yeah, just infinite.
but what I want to bring it up because it's broken potentially, and it's banned. It's been banned for a long time since 2015. So here's their reasoning though, and then part of why I'm bringing this up is because they print cards that do some of these things,
Yeah,
which they
yeah. Their
banned other.
reasoning's like really weird. I mean, it's not
Well,
super weird, but it's
so they
kind of
give
weird.
4 reasons for it. Let me just do it at least briefly for all. But the first one, it would eliminate the possibility of a player running out of cards in their deck, a victory condition for the other player. If that's the reason to ban it, then I'm glad they printed Pidgeot V, right? Because we wouldn't want to stop your opponent from decking you out
Exactly,
in
or
a
Squove,
matchup.
right? So this does stop them from like going in with Great Tusk, really. Like if your opponent's playing Great
Hmm.
Tusk and you're playing this, they can't win. So it is stop. So versus if you're playing Pidgeot V, like your opponent can still win if you're playing just a bunch of
Yeah,
or
but essentially,
it's
if
like a
you don't
similar
want,
concept. It's like kind of silly. That's not what they said. It's not stopping Mill's strategies. It's stopping the win condition itself. And so other cards definitely do
right?
that.
So they keep doing it. So now it allowed repeated use of trainer cards, and obviously some of these other bans of the Pokemon we talked about were because they recovered cards or items, right? So we get that. Although they keep printing there's always ways to recover cards, right? So it's a balancing act, I think, in their mind, right? You want to allow some, but not too much, and they want to allow some control, but not too much. I think is what they're kind of playing a
Yeah.
game in a sense to find a balance to make people happy. It allows a player to quickly draw through their deck without any negative effects. It, I don't know if that's really a reason to ban it. That's saying it was too good, right? In a sense, which again, I'm
Yeah.
not sure that's a good reason to ban a card.
I mean, it was like,
Um,
yeah. Mhm.
I'm not, I look, I wasn't playing when this card was legal, so I maybe it really was that degenerate and it should be banned. And that significantly increased the length of battles, which is an interesting comment, right? So, and I can see, right, if people aren't doing, if they're not taking knockouts and you're not decking out, the game just drags on, right?
Yeah, but then there's also like Snorlax and stuff. Like I think Snorlax is really bad. I've said this before. Snorlax is obviously it's kind of toxic, not very fun to play against. But that's that is what it is,
Or-
right? But it's a reprint of a card that was that before. Like Snorlax, it wasn't expanded. It wasn't really. I don't think it was that good in standard. It was like interesting and okay, but in expanded, it was very good, and it's the same card. So like it does the same thing, and obviously it does the same thing, right?
Yeah, so they kind of they ban certain things, but then they keep creating cards that are very similar, right? And while they get rid of, I guess, the worst offenders, there's things that aren't far behind that are left in format, right? Because like you said, with stuff, there's still a lot of control decks in the Japanese expanded tournament that where there's some data, right? Very limited data, but it's still like the big thing out there, and it's very hard when you have a massive amount of cards. And I mean, one concern I have with expanded is it started a long time ago, right? So it was a much smaller card base. The card base has grown enormously. You're going to get a lot of weird interactions, and control is always looking for those weird interactions. So it's going to hard to be. It's you can't really keep control out of that type of environment, I would say.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to mention, I think, as we're coming to a close, getting into the end,
Yeah.
you mentioned
Yep.
Archeops before I started recording, and can you read the why they banned that?
All right. So Archeops, which it's a stage one. It has the ability.
Oh,
This is
I
from
wish we
mobile.
got to stage one because that it's so weird. Why do they
It's not
do?
a stage two. It's a stage
It's just
one,
so weird.
a fighting Pokemon, and it's got the ability Ancient Power. And it says on it, each player can't play any Pokemon from his or her hand to evolve his or her Pokemon. Pretty straightforward, very powerful, obviously. Very powerful. I will admit that. So it was banned. And let me find their official announcement here because they give an announcement with a list of cards and they give the reasoning for it as well. And so Archeops, the first sentence here, the existence of Archeops' ancient power ability has a very negative effect on decks that rely on evolved Pokemon. And it's yeah, I mean that's why you printed the ability. That's all it does, right? So it's hard to understand why that's a reason to ban it, right? It does what it intended to do, is what
Yeah,
I'd
like
say.
Hex Maniac, I think was that's banned. It like ability locks, and Garbodor is also not banned, but that ability locks in that card is kind of toxic. But it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It just ability locks, the ability lock, and so um, I don't know. I feel like it does exactly what it said. Like that's like what were they expecting the card to be like bad? And also, it's not even that good either. Like it's like with this card banned, um, expanded. Most of the decks are still basics anyways. So like all the evolutions they banned. I mean, there are some evolutions that see play. Like I mentioned, I guess that's not entirely true. There's like the like Wombo combo. What was it? It's the one with the Lone Raichu with the reversal energy deck. That one. And then
Okay.
there's which is an evolution deck, but like that's also not that fun for the format. And there are some like evolution decks that like are good, like Lugia V Star is like solid, but then you can just Wally, or you can like Team Evolution. So you could just like skip
Right.
it. So it also isn't like that good. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and part of like Archeops, and they say there's ways to combat it, but they're hard to do for your opponent. But they have to play extra cards to do it. But that's what game's about. Even with just knockout decks, right? You're making life difficult, and your opponent have to counter one another. And then they also do say part of it, the problem was Maxi's hidden ball trick, but that's now been banned since then, right?
And the rule was also changed. So like I guess the rule change isn't that big of a deal. You could still always do it
Oh,
before
wait,
your
maybe that
opponent
wasn't
got a
banned.
chance to do it. But also, yeah, Max's hidden ball trick got banned
It was
because of it was some other fossils. The
Yeah, I can pull
I
up
don't
because
remember
it
the
was a
Kabutops and the
supporter
Omastar.
that allowed you to, if it was the last card in your hand, Maxi's pinball trick, then you put a fighting Pokemon for your disc pile onto your bench. And because of Omastar and Kubotops, Kabuto, I don't know how you say that one,
Yeah,
but
Kabutops. Yeah, the two I just said, right?
yes,
So and they support lock. The one that support locks, one item locks.
right.
Um, The one they're like a little weird, but yeah, they essentially do that. You can do it like turn one, and then the ruling change after. It's a weird thing. Um, so I feel like they're not like I mean they're kind of toxic, but also like you can item lock with Vile Flume, which is very good and still played a lot, and then you can support a lock.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can support a lock that easily. Anything that I can think of immediately that's like actually good, but item lock still very like is still very good.
Right, and obviously we had Vikavolt V not that long ago. So and you have the little you have item lock in the game as well today still.
Yeah, you
So
have yeah, and they're printing another item lock card in the next set too. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's very strange. Um, are there any other cards you want to talk about? I feel like obviously there are other banned cards, but I feel like
yeah, no,
that's
I
the
don't think
important
there's
ones.
anything else that we have to talk about. I mean, the question is not to kind of leave is when what should be done? Are bands good or bad? Something to think about. It obviously, like you say, it does reveal a bit of a problem with the design. What's the place of expanded? Is it really a standard game, and the expanded is just kind of the remnants, and then they kind of tidy it up from time to time? I don't know if that's a good attitude, but maybe that's just the way it is, or it needs to be. Should there be errata? Could they ban combos instead? It's complicated, I will say, and whatever you do is not going to make everyone happy. But I guess at this point, since expand is not really a thing, it's not going to matter as long as I don't have to ban any more standard cards.
Yeah, yeah. Which who knows? Who knows? I think there's a card in the next set that hand locks and moves all your opponent's cards. So, but Pokemon loves hand lock, so they're not gonna ban it, right? I don't really know what's going on. It's weird. But anyways, we hope you enjoyed. And next week we're probably gonna be talking about the World Championships. Maybe not. I don't know. There's gonna be some cool stuff to talk about, presumably. So we hope you enjoyed though, and as always, we're excited to see you in the next episode.
All right, take care.